humanist psychology. So humanist psychology is probably the most similar to philosophy and religion and the early foundations of positive psychology. And its humanistic approach was like the basis of positive psychology, in a sense that humanistic psychology emphasizes the inherent human drive towards self-actualization. It's the process of realizing your own abilities and potential and capabilities and reaching for it, the desire to push towards reaching that goal. And it brought back human consciousness. So humans are aware, obviously, of being aware, and they're aware of themselves and who they are, and they're aware of others, and we have the ability to make choices and intentions of goals, and we know that we can cause future events. It's the basis of a lot of positive psychology. Now, the biggest person in humanistic psychology was Abraham Maslow, and we'll get to him in a second. I just remembered. So the humanist approach came at a really big shift in psychology. So it happened in the 1940s, 1950s, after World War II. So the focus of psychology began to shift from focusing on abnormal behaviors and mental illness to just behavior and just stimuli and the one little onesie-twosie things. It went from being a focus on mental illness or that to a holistic, positive approach to human behavior. And as a result of behaviorism and of psychoanalysts, those movements, psychologists really began questioning whether humans are simply a product of their environments or their genetics or their chemistry, or if they have more of an ability to grow and be different. Because there were limitations in both Freud's era and B.F. Skinner's era. Freud was too mental illness focused, and then B.F. Skinner was too mechanic and simplistic. Humanistic was more holistic, and how to focus on humans growing and thriving and changing, and it was just a lot more progressive. Humanists believed that people were influenced both by their environment and their internal motivations to fulfill their potential and their capabilities and creativity. And we have an inherent desire to find a meaning in life, which is very fundamental in positive psychology, is finding meaning and purpose. And positive psychology isn't just about being happy all the time. There's more to being happy. Happy is a subjective, not really measurable thing, but well-being is more objective. Self-efficacy, I think I'm saying that right, is more objective. You can measure different aspects that create happiness. And that was is just like the beginning. It was just the beginning of the next approach. Now, one difficulty with the humanistic approach was that many humanists rejected scientific methodology, similar to William James, where he didn't really care about lab testing and all that stuff. But humanists really believed that by testing certain conditions, you were already putting a ceiling on the potential. So it's like you're trying to measure a 6-foot tall person in a 5-foot tall room. You're already cutting it short. So instead of measuring things scientifically, they just took a completely subjective approach, which had its downfalls. Much like Freud, it had its downfalls because it wasn't really easy to duplicate. It was a great concept, but it wasn't really easy to empirically measure. Rodgers, Aaron Rodgers, is important because he redirected psychology towards the study of self, which is amazing. I mean, we kind of digressed a little bit from the study of self. And he believed that all people possess an actualizing tendency, or an innate strive to be their best self. That sounds familiar, right? It's very similar to a lot of the core philosophy and religious beliefs. And Aaron Rodgers inspired Maslow to develop the hierarchy of human needs, which is a little triangle that, bases off of you need shelter, and you need food, and you need this, and then you, at the top, is self-actualization. So you need all these things in order to finally be self-actualized. So that's one of the biggest parts of it is they took self-actualization and enlightenment and nirvana from early religions and applied it and turned psychology back into itself. And they wanted to look at what drives us to grow and achieve and fulfill. However, even though their conceptual ideas of human nature did influence the development of psychology, they are separate. Positive psychology took a more empirical approach. Humanistic approach took more qualitative methods, and positive psychology was more geared towards developing a scientific understanding of human beings. Abraham Maslow was the person to coin the term positive psychology. He was the first person. He stated that psychology didn't have a good enough understanding of human potential, which is true. We hadn't really had a good chunk of, there was a good chunk of time where we weren't really studying potential. We were trying to just study what people are capable of doing, and that's that, like just trying to study what we're good at. We didn't really study human potential. And that Abraham Maslow's primary focus was on that. And that at the time, a lot of psychologists were focused on the negative aspects of behavior, negative aspects of evolution, negative aspects of mental illness. So he was some of the first to kind of turn the tides to more of a positive approach. Next is the final wave, which we'll get to next, which is positive psychology.